lived is not defined merely by freedom and self-invention, as important as this is for those privileged enough to be able to exercise those capacities. It begins in complete dependence and vulnerability even before you were born. And in the best case scenario follows a gentle upward climb of growth, development, and independence when you reach the peak of your powers, when you will immediately pivot downwards, God willing, in a gentle decline back into total dependence once again. And this reality stands us in a particular kind of relationship to one another. Because our lives as embodied creatures render us vulnerable, we're mutually dependent upon one another. Human beings are unique among mammals for our long period of biological dependence at the beginning of our lives. But it doesn't stop there. As embodied beings in time, we need one another for basic survival throughout our lives. We all exist on a scale of disability, as my colleague Alistair McIntyre has said. But it is not for mere survival that we need one another. We need one another to learn to become the thing we are meant to be. We need each other for human flourishing. More on what that entails in a moment. But consider first, in light of our dependence, what we need to survive and flourish. We need not the freedom of the unencumbered self, but rather what McIntyre calls networks of uncalculated giving and graceful receiving, composed of people who are willing to make the good of others their own without counting the cost or seeking anything in return. These networks are a web of relationships defined not by transactions for mutual benefit, formed by consenting parties, but rather defined by unchosen obligations and unearned privileges. The late Sir Roger Scruton puts it this way: for us humans, who enter into a world marked by the joys and sufferings of those who are making room for us, who enjoy protection in our early years and opportunities in our maturity, the field of obligation is wider than the field of choice. We are bound by ties we never chose, and our world contains values and challenges that intrude from beyond the comfortable arena of our agreements. A pristine exemplar of such a relationship is that of parents and children. Parents don't care for children because they're contractually obliged to do so. Children don't earn or bargain for the privilege of being cared for by their parents. It inheres in the relationship itself. By participating in these networks, we survive. But even more than that, we flourish. And our flourishing, I submit to you, consists precisely in becoming the kind of beings who can make the good of others our own without counting the cost. In other words, by virtue of our embodiment, it becomes clear that we are made for love and friendship. So what is needed to create and sustain these networks of giving and receiving? Again, not the radical freedom of the atomized individual will to create his or her own future. Instead, what is needed are what McIntyre has described as the virtues of acknowledged dependence. These virtues of uncalculated giving are just generosity, giving according to need; hospitality, welcoming the stranger; misericordia, making the suffering of others your own. Virtues of graceful receiving are chiefly gratitude, all is gift, which engenders humility, along with openness to the unbidden and tolerance of imperfection. Solidarity, the notion that we're all in this together. Respect for the intrinsic equal dignity of every member of the human family, born and unborn, regardless of condition or circumstance. And truthfulness. In other words, the virtues needed to flourish are the virtues of genuine and authentic friendship. To practice these virtues, you need to cultivate your moral imagination, to see the faces and hear the voices, even when obscured or silenced by conditions or circumstances, of those who are in need. Lift your gaze up from inside and look around you to find the weakest and most vulnerable. They may be in places you never expected or didn't think to look. Genuine human flourishing is not about self-invention or the projection of the will, as important as those might be in certain contexts. It is about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. We are most human when we are caring for one another, especially the weakest and most vulnerable. Never forget that love is more important than power. And to be clear, in this as in other things, you and I will fail a lot. But don't ever quit. Get back up. As Samuel Beckett said, fail again. Fail better. Graduates, your parents and I are proud of you. Congratulations once again, and let us pause to give thanks for this miraculous network of uncalculated giving and graceful receiving that is Thomas Aquinas College. Take care of yourselves, and more importantly,